Ukraine's newly appointed defense minister, Mykhailo Fedorov, has told parliament that nearly 200,000 Ukrainian soldiers are absent without official leave, meaning they have abandoned their positions without authorization. At the same time, Fedorov disclosed that as many as 2 million Ukrainian citizens are now officially wanted for avoiding military service, a figure that lays bare the depth of strain inside a country fighting a prolonged and brutal war. The comments were delivered inside the Ukrainian parliament just hours before lawmakers confirmed Fedorov as the country's new defense chief, making him the youngest person ever to hold the role at just 34 years old. This is a crisis Kyiv can no longer keep quiet. For the first time since Russia's invasion, a senior Ukrainian official has revealed the true scale of Ukraine's manpower emergency, and the numbers are staggering. For years, rumors of collapsing morale, exhaustion, and rising desertion have circulated across Ukraine's front lines, but this marks the first time any official has publicly acknowledged the scale of the problem. Ukraine's armed forces remain locked in a grinding fight against a larger and better equipped enemy, with troops often ordered to hold key positions despite being outmanned, outgunned, and stretched beyond their limits. Under Ukrainian law, all men aged 18 to 60 must register for military service, while those aged 25 to 60 are eligible for mobilization, and martial law prevents most men of fighting age from leaving the country. Despite those restrictions, tens of thousands have fled illegally, highlighting the growing gap between Kyiv's mobilization demands and public willingness to answer them. President Volodymyr Zelensky responded to Fedorov's remarks by acknowledging that broader changes are now needed to Ukraine's mobilization system, signaling potential reforms as the war drags into another year. Fedorov, who previously served as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Digital Transformation, has argued that Ukraine's manpower crisis makes technological superiority not just an advantage, but a necessity. He pointed to Ukraine's rapidly expanding drone industry, revealing that more than 500 companies are now producing drones, alongside 200 firms developing electronic jamming equipment and over 20 private missile manufacturers. According to Fedorov, technology is now Ukraine's answer to shrinking troop numbers, insisting that more robots and more automation will reduce casualties and preserve lives on the battlefield. The defense chief's remarks came amid reports that Ukrainian fighters have vanished after being absorbed into the controversial Azov-linked 3rd Army Corps.
The war in Ukraine is no longer just a clash of armies at the front. It is a widening storm of disappearances, bans, strikes, and burning cities spilling across borders and deep into Europe's security fears. A disturbing revelation from inside Ukraine's own ranks has been exposed. More than 120 Ukrainian fighters have vanished after being absorbed into the controversial Azov-linked 3rd Army Corps, according to Russian security sources cited by RIA Novosti. The 125th Separate Heavy Mechanized Brigade, officials claim, has lost 124 service members in just 2 months. The brigade was recently folded into the Azov structure, with Major Vladimir Fokin, a close associate of Azov founder Andrei Beletsky, installed as commander. As families wait for answers, the brigade's leadership has reportedly shifted blame downward, placing responsibility on unit commanders. Missing soldiers, no clear explanation, and silence where accountability should be. As uncertainty grows on the battlefield, fear is hardening into policy across Europe. Estonia has slammed its doors shut to 261 Russian veterans of the Ukraine war, banning them outright from entering the country. Foreign Minister Markus Chakna delivered a blunt warning: this is only the beginning. Estonia, backed by Baltic and Nordic allies, is now pushing for a Europe-wide visa ban, arguing that battle-hardened veterans pose a real and immediate threat. Interior Minister Igor Taro says this danger is not theoretical, pointing to combat experience, military training, and alleged criminal backgrounds. Ukraine applauded the move, calling it a clear signal that impunity will not be tolerated. Meanwhile, the war's violence continues to escalate. Ukraine says it struck a Russian drone manufacturing plant in the Rostov region, triggering a local state of emergency. The target, identified as the Atlant Aero plant in Taganrog, is believed to produce Molniya strike drones and components for Orion systems. Video shows buildings engulfed in flames. At sea, the conflict spilled into global energy routes. 2 Greek-owned oil tankers were hit in the Black Sea, including one en route to load Kazakh oil near Russia's Novorossiysk port, another sign Ukraine is targeting oil revenue lifelines. And overnight, Russia unleashed one of its largest attacks of the new year, firing nearly 300 drones and dozens of missiles across Ukraine. At least 4 people were killed. Power and heating were knocked out across multiple regions, leaving millions exposed to the deadly winter cold. This is no longer just a war of territory. It is a war of endurance, fear, and fallout, and its shockwaves are only growing stronger.
In line with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I had discussions with U.S. Congressman Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal. I am deeply grateful for the unwavering bipartisan support from the U.S. Congress. We are currently engaged in very productive work with the President of the United States and his team. We discussed all the details of this. I informed him about the situation with Russian strikes and the urgent need for air defense. We talked about how to protect our skies. We are continuing to prepare documents with America concerning security guarantees and reconstruction. We are actively working to ensure that in the near future, formats for signing and legal ratification are possible in the United States Congress and the Ukrainian Parliament. Today, we are supporting the position on Iran, the regime that has been in power there for so many years and has killed countless innocent people, does not deserve to exist. Changes are desperately needed, and similarly, changes are also needed right here in Europe. The bloodshed that Russia started, and which only Russia continues to prolong, must finally come to an end.
Russia launches second major drone and missile bombardment of Ukraine in 4 days, aiming again at the power grid and apparently snubbing US-led peace efforts as the war approaches the 4-year mark. Russia fires almost 300 drones, 108 ballistic missiles, and 7 cruise missiles at 8 regions overnight. Several 100,000 households without power in the Kyiv region. Before dawn breaks over Ukraine, the sky explodes. Russia unleashes one of its heaviest barrages in weeks. Missiles screaming overhead, drones swarming through the darkness, and power plants burning in the cold of winter. More than 24 missiles and nearly 300 drones struck across the country in the early hours of Tuesday. At least 4 people were killed. 6 more were wounded. In eastern Ukraine's Kharkiv region, firefighters battled raging flames at a postal hub reduced to smoldering wreckage. Rescue workers moved through debris by torchlight, helping survivors as temperatures plunged below freezing. White-helmeted emergency crews were seen climbing through the ruins of a Nova Poshta facility, still smoking hours after the strike. Ukraine's fragile energy system took another direct hit. The country's largest power provider, DTEK, confirmed that one of its power plants was struck, the 8th such attack since October alone. Since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, DTEK says its power facilities have been attacked more than 220 times. homes. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the impact is immediate and devastating. Several 100,000 households around Kyiv were without electricity. Emergency power cuts rolled out across the capital and surrounding regions as freezing weather made repairs even harder. "This is Russian terror," Zelensky wrote. He urged Ukraine's allies to respond, not with words, but with new air defense systems and fresh military aid. Russia must learn that cold will not help it win this war, the Ukrainian president said. The strikes were not limited to one region. In Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv, Mayor Igor Terekov confirmed a Russian long-range drone hit a medical facility for children, sparking a fire. Miraculously, no casualties were reported. Further south, in Odessa and surrounding areas, residential buildings, a hospital, and a kindergarten were damaged. At least 5 people were wounded as 2 separate waves of attacks hit the region overnight. Ukraine's Air Force said 25 missiles and 293 drones were launched in a single night. It is part of a relentless campaign, with Russia pounding Ukraine's energy infrastructure daily, cutting heat and power at the harshest point of winter. The escalation comes just days after Russia fired a nuclear-capable Oreshnik ballistic missile at Ukraine, a move condemned by Ukraine's allies. Washington called it a dangerous and inexplicable escalation. Moscow claimed the missile struck an aviation repair facility in western Ukraine and said it was retaliation for an alleged Ukrainian attempt to target one of President Putin's residences. A claim Kyiv denies, and the United States says it does not believe. As night turns to morning, Ukraine wakes once again to darkness, cold, and loss. Power lines are down, homes are shattered, and winter has become another weapon in a war with no pause. For millions of Ukrainians, survival now depends not just on endurance, but on how fast the world responds.